Hey everyone, Mr. Kaczynski here, working through IXL's 8th grade math skills, section P. Today, more on reflections. In my last lesson, we concentrated on graphs. Today, we're going to focus on finding coordinates after reflections, mainly over the x and y axis. Okay, so we've got this point T5, and it's reflected over the x-axis. What are the coordinates of the resulting point? So we're not actually needing to graph it, but I will. So it's 5 above the x-axis right now. So when we reflect it over the x-axis, it's going to be 5 below. So that would be what we call T prime. And its coordinates would be, let's see, 5, -5. Okay, and that is only one example, but it kind of illustrates the rule. The rule is if you have a point in this form, xy, and you reflect over the x-axis, that the new point would become in this form, x negative y. And maybe I shouldn't say negative y, but opposite y. Sorry. I wanted to show my negative sign a little bit better. So x negative y. So in this case, we had 5, 5. And after we did a reflection over the x-axis, that became 5, as in x stayed the same, -5, as in the y value became opposite. So 5, -5 is what we would go with here. All right, now let's illustrate what happens when we reflect over the y-axis. So v here is 2 to the right. Now it's going to be 2 to the left. And its point is at -2, +2. It used to be at +2, -2. So here's the rule on reflections over the y-axis. Oops. Reflect over y-axis. xy becomes -xy. So when you reflect over the y-axis, your y value stays the same, but your x value becomes opposite. So in this case, we had 2, 2. When we did this reflection, the new image was -2, 2. So x became opposite, y stayed the same. So let's use that rule. We're reflecting this image over the x-axis. So the rule here is that xy becomes, when you reflect over the x-axis, it's actually the y value that becomes opposite. You keep your same x value and you're reflecting, x stays the same and it's your y value that's becoming opposite. So x stays the same, 1, 9, 9, 1, and y becomes opposite. Opposite of -9 is +9. Opposite of -9, +9. Opposite of -1, +1. Opposite of -1, +1. A lot of times when I'm doing skills like this, that's exactly what I do. I concentrate on the x values first and then the y values. All right, how about this one here? We're reflecting over the y-axis. So what's our rule? Our rule is when we reflect over the y-axis, when we have a point like xy, that becomes -x, +y. So you take the opposite of the x and the y stays the same. So y stays the same. Stay -6, stays -6, stays 4, stays 4. And the x value becomes opposite. So instead of -10, +10. Instead of 0, well, the opposite of 0 is 0. Same here. And instead of negative 10, positive 10. Let's graph it and see if it worked out right. 10, negative 6. 10, negative 6 would be right here. That's A prime. 0, negative 6. That's right here. Notice it didn't move at all because it's on the y-axis, and that's the line of reflection. 0, 4. Same thing here for C, turning into C prime. And 10, 4. 10 to the right, 4 up. There's D prime. So A, B, C, D, or A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. There's our new image after reflection over the y-axis. One more, we're going to do another reflection over the x-axis. I picked this one because some of it's to the left of the y-axis, some of it's to the right. All right, so what's our rule for reflecting over the y-axis? It's that any point in the form reflecting over the x-axis. So any point that's in the form xy, the x-axis, the x value actually stays the same, and it's the y value that becomes opposite. So x stays the same, negative 3, 1, 1. Y becomes opposite. Negative 9 becomes positive 9. Negative 6 becomes positive 6. 0 stays the same, and negative 3 becomes positive 3. Let's plot those points. Negative 3, positive 9. There's S prime. Negative 3, positive 6. Negative 3, positive 6 is right here. So there's T prime. 1, 0 stays right where it was. There's U prime. And 1, 3 right here. There's V prime. Connect those points with some straight lines here. And we'll go S prime. Oops. Lost it. All right, so we'll go S prime to T prime to U prime to V prime, and V prime back to S prime. That's the proper reflection over the x-axis. So again, this is concentrating on reflections over the x and y axis.